Thank you, everyone. Welcome to today's Wednesday webinar. We're a little late getting started today, but really delighted to share with you this session from, we're joined by Chris Jamieson, Head of Investments from Social Investment Scotland, and Hekla Goodman from Big Issue Invest. She's their early stage investment manager. Because we're late starting, you don't get any of my banter now. You'll all be relieved. Those of you who have been in since the beginning, apologies. We'll get started again, and over to you then, Chris. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Naomi, and thanks to Naomi, Duncan, and those at Social Enterprise Scotland for hosting us. Really appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak to the audience today. So yeah, my name's Chris Jamieson. I'm Head of Investments at Social Investment Scotland. It's a very grand title. Effectively, what I do is I look after a team of people who in turn look after all of our customers and prospective customers. I'm going to give you a quick overview of SiS, a little bit about current market, a little bit about our current loans, and I'm really looking forward to the Q&A. Delighted to be alongside Hekla from Big Issue Invest. So Big Issue Invest are an organisation that we have really deep relationships with. We do an awful lot of work together. We share customers, we bounce ideas off each other, and we generally try to help. So really good synergy there. So yeah, front page, I never miss an opportunity to plug one of our customers. This is US Wool, a great social enterprise that we have helped over a number of years. So without further ado, I am going to, there we go. So SiS in effect, there's three things. First one is the sort of the bread and butter, what we've been doing for a number of years, and that's we provide loans to the third sector organisations of Scotland. Second thing, and this is a far more recent thing, is we have set up what we call SiS Ventures, which is owned by the charity that is SiS, and it's an equity business providing capital into mission-locked businesses. So that's not a third sector organisation, but it's very much equity. And these two things are absolutely underpinned by the support that we provide through our market building team. So those of you who've probably been on any of our market building activities will be aware of Kieran Daly, and that's very much about engaging with organisations and people like yourselves, people who have got an idea, people who might already have a social enterprise as a charity and looking to do things differently. But it's absolutely vitally important to SiS that we provide these market building opportunities to speak with our audience, our potential audience, and try to move that along. So who are SiS? Established 2001. We've provided over £100 million in Scotland since then, and that continues to go. We provide loans from as little as £10,000 to as large as 1.7 million, and the loans are provided to social sector organisations. We pride ourselves on supporting impactful plans. We start with impact. Ultimately, we want to connect our capital with communities that are providing impact, growing impact, doing more, improving the lives of those in their communities. And we try to be as flexible as possible there. As I've mentioned, SiS Ventures invest in impactful enterprises, and we try to take the lead impact investor there. We're often surrounded by traditional equity investors, so it's very important to us that if we are making an investment, that we embed and protect and grow the impact there. And absolutely everything is supported by commitment to market building, and we have helped hundreds of social enterprises each year. In terms of, Naomi mentioned at the very start, I almost wish we would just call social investment what it is. The investment word itself is a bit of a misnomer, because social investment at its heart is a loan, and the providers of loans, we've tried to put a snapshot on this page here just to give you an idea of who they are and how they're different. So on the left of my screen, I think it's the same for your screen, we've got the high street banks. So they have the largest amounts of money and capital to lend out. They take the lowest risk, and therefore they match that risk with the cheapest interest rates. They have very different goals to what we have, which is absolutely fine. In the middle sit the social banks. So we'll probably take a little bit more risk than the high street banks. Well, might be a little bit more expensive, might not be in certain circumstances, but they will be very socially aware compared to where the high street banks are. And then the non-bank social finance providers, you can see there's ourselves, Big Issue Invest, and some other names that you might be aware of. And we are really here to face off against the sector who might struggle to approach a social bank or a high street bank. I might just not be able to have a conversation there. We will take a slightly more risk, sometimes a lot more risk than a social bank or a high street bank. But what we will do very differently is the initial conversation. We will understand where you're coming from. I remember, I'm a trustee as well, approaching a bank as a charity or social enterprise, even just to talk about a bank account, can be quite tricky, never mind any loans. And what we aren't remiss about is there are grant funders out there as well who are not part of this. And we absolutely understand that loan finance or debt is not appropriate for all organizations, and some organizations will continue to be grant dependent to do that. But where there is a want and a desire, an opportunity to grow, and debt finance is applicable, we would really like to help. Our loans, so we're customer centric in absolutely everything we do. So we work really closely with any organizations, whether that's just approaching us, having a conversation, whether that's an actual ask. We try to understand what you're trying to do. What are your ambitions? And again, it starts with impact. Who are you trying to help? And we will help along with the investment readiness stuff. And it's not just about new loans. We have over 200, almost 250 customers that we look after. And we absolutely understand that if an inquiry becomes a customer, so they take on a loan and they do their plan, plans never go to plan. You know, if we think about since March 2020, nobody would have foresaw that. Nobody's cash flow projections or nobody's thinking would have allowed a smooth flow through COVID. And a great example of that is customers really needed our help, our support, and some flexibility with the repayments, which we're really happy to do. In terms of approaching us, so there's no restrictions on purpose of loan other than whether it's legal or if it's, you know, we're certainly not going to do anything that's going to be controversial, but capital build, purchase, cash flow, bridging of grants, you want to do a little bit more, you want to replicate elsewhere, absolutely. We love hearing about all sorts of ideas and challenging ourselves to come up with ways to try and help. Provide terms up to 15 years of repayment terms. We have the ability to be very flexible in the initial part of the loan terms, and I'll talk to you about that a little later on with one of the case studies that I've got. Security is often something that's a bit misunderstood. Not having security to offer to a social investor is not a barrier. It would be potentially with a bank, not so much for us. And we will never ask a trustee or director for personal guarantees. Interest rates are always important. Our interest rates start from 6% and go up. And we don't have a specific policy around how we price, but it's very much based upon each individual case as it comes in, social impact, what you're trying to do, who's doing it, why you're doing it, and the level of risk there. And it all starts usually with a phone call. I've got an idea, I need to speak to somebody. We've also started doing monthly investment readiness workshops run by Kieran that I mentioned earlier. And I would, if you are thinking about growth and you're thinking, right, how do we finance this? Well worth going on. Something else we put on our website quite recently is a diagnostic tool. This is really based upon some of the key things that we look at when we are working with an organization who's thinking about growing, who's thinking about taking on social investment. It starts with social impact. what you're doing, why you're doing it, you're going to do more. I'll not go through all of them. People and skills is a really important one. Who's around you? What skills do you have? What skills do you need to get? Financial controls is very, very important that your organization is sustainable, not just so that you can repay any loan. That's absolutely not where we come from. It's so that you can continue to trade, so you continue to provide the benefit to your communities. That's a really, really interesting thing to do, and there's an output there. Current market, we have spent an awful lot of time with our existing customers, helping them get through COVID. SiS has been lucky enough to be involved in some of the emergency capital from Scottish Government. It's been deployed. Some of these names you will know: the Third Sector Resilience Fund, Adapt and Thrive, Resilience and Recovery Loan Fund. This has all been very helpful money on very soft terms. We've been delighted to be able to help that. And we've helped considerable amounts of customers, new and existing, through that, which has meant that our traditional demand has been very impacted. What we are seeing, and I appreciate I've got an audience of trustees and leaders here, it's been very difficult to think about how do you plan through COVID, what happens after COVID, are people going to come through my door, am I still going to be able to do the contracts I do? What we are seeing now is that plans are beginning to come back on. New plans are hatching, there are opportunities there, and we're very much open for business to help, engage, converse, challenge sometimes, be challenged, but absolutely keen to help. March of this year, Scottish Government launched the Third Sector Growth Fund, which was a £30 million package, and that was really to grow and explore new forms of social investment. We were lucky enough to be the recipient of £15 million of that. We have spent quite a long time in diligence, speaking with an awful lot of the sector to try and understand what's needed and what would be most useful. And we are happy to sort of launch 3 different strains of that money. Unfortunately, it is all loan finance. There is no grant funding as part of that 15, although we have engaged with a number of the trusts and foundations to see if we would be able to do any blend, so part loan, part grant, and that's something that we continue to try and do. First 5 million of that was allocated to SiS Ventures to allow them to take forward the already impressive first slug of money that they've had to invest further in delivering impact to enterprises, delivering profit with purpose. The second 5 million we are launching post-COP, a circular economy fund, absolutely aimed at the sector, helping them on the journey to net zero, or just being a bit more environmentally aware. There will be wraparound support. We're partnered with Zero Waste Scotland to do that, and it's very much around reduce, reuse, recycle. We're trying not to be too specific, but very much about making helping out with the climate emergency. The third pot of 5 million will be what we're calling the Resilience and Recovery Fund, and that's really looking at supporting larger social enterprises and charities whose reserves have been decimated, which puts them in a precarious place, even just providing services, but also will potentially rob them of any innovation that reserves might have given them confidence or allowed them to do. And these will be launched over the next while. Really exciting. Just to give the market building activities a bit of a plug, because everything that we do is absolutely supported by that. Our Ambitions programme, which is really about scaling operations, getting some new ideas, very collaborative, amazing contributions from experts and from out with the sector, within the sector. It's really all about challenging scale. How do we do more? How do we take on some of the bigger organizations? The Retail Academy, this is something that we are promoting at the moment, very much aimed at social enterprises who are in the business of providing products. Initially started off with ASDA, and it's really about trying to help these organizations get their products on shelves. And some of the most high profile and impactful organizations that we are aware of have come through the Retail Academy. Hey Girls, as mentioned there, Blank Faces t-shirt company, have all benefited from that. And there's an alumni and there's an information sharing on the back of that, but it's absolutely brilliant. So you will see on our website that we are about to go into the next phase of that. If you're interested, please do have a look. A couple of examples of social investment in practice. So Glen Urquhart Care Project, we helped them build 12 new homes. An already really impactful organization, wanting to do more, couldn't grant fund it all, didn't have money to do that. So they came to the crossroads, so the junction, do we do nothing? Or do we take on a social investment loan to allow us to do that? Engage really early, talk to us about their concerns about taking on debt. We spoke with their board, their leaders, we understood that. But it was absolutely amazing, and you'll be able to go on and see the Glen Urquhart Care Project there. What was also really important to them was that they were going to be building something, and why they built 12 homes, which don't just go up straight away. They would not be generating any revenues from the contracts that they had lined up. So we were able to give them a really patient first 2 years of their loan, so that their cash flow wouldn't be disturbed there. So really interesting one there. Also, they needed a small grant, and some of the bridging facility for their grant, some of the grants paid out retrospectively, which meant that Glen Urquhart Care Project had to spend the money and repay it. So from a cash flow perspective, that's very tricky. So we provided them a small loan, very short term, to allow them to do that. But absolutely amazing organization, and we never tire of talking about. Another really interesting one is Locavore, Scotland's sort of first ethical supermarket, real success story. We saw some opportunities throughout COVID, an amazing organization who are growing. Locavore are a really good example of some of the market building support initiatives that we've run. They have been a number of them. They've challenged themselves, we've challenged them, they've been challenged by other people on that. We've put them in touch with experts, and it's amazing to see them grow. Their social impact is absolutely unbelievable. And we're supporting them further with more debt because they need it. There are no other grants available to them, and they're setting up stores throughout Scotland now. So it'll be really interesting to see where they end up. But a really impactful organisation with real ambitions, and we're delighted to again highlight what they do. That's me. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that made sense. I look forward to the Q&A at the end. Over to you, Naomi.
Thank you, Chris. Really useful background, I think, to social investment generally, and obviously to SiS and what you do. I'm delighted now to just introduce Hekla to talk to us a bit about Big Issue Invest. Again, we know lots of social enterprise have really benefited from the work of things like the Power Up programme that Big Issue Invest have done in the past. So over to you, Hekla.
Hi, thank you so much, Naomi, and thanks, Chris, for the rundown. I'd like to echo what you said. We have a great working relationship with them, and we've co-invested in a couple of organizations, and we run workshops with them. So yeah, please do reach out to Chris if you have any capital requirements. But a little bit about why I'm here. I head up early stage investments at Big Issue Invest. And oftentimes that looks like place-based programs. The one that we've got on offer in Scotland is called Power Up Scotland. You might have heard of it. We've been in the press for our impact report and just sharing some case studies from the likes of Social Stories Club. It's a gift hamper business. They came actually out of University of Edinburgh and now are projected to turn over around £750,000 this next year. So really exciting times. A little bit about the program. It's a pre-seed accelerator, which essentially means that we try to help make you investment ready. The deliverables for the program are a business plan and a financial forecast. Now we partner you with expert mentors or a team of expert mentors that help assess where you are at as a business and project where you can get in the end of 3 months. So it's not just completing those deliverables, but it's also trying to create a bespoke program around the needs of your business, whether that be business development, whether you need help with legal contracting, procurement, marketing and branding. We kind of help support you in whatever your aims are. So we'll also offer a series of workshops, and you can dip in and out of those as and when your schedule is available. We like to encourage everyone to come along to our social impact workshop, because that kind of undergirds everything that we do. We're impact first. So we would like to help you measure your impact metrics, or create a framework for your organization so that you know the social value that you're providing from your business and then also to your community. Right now, we've got applications open until September 17th, which is coming up really soon. And I'll add a couple of links just so you can find out a little bit more about the program from our website, and then also the application. Now, some people were telling me that the application takes them about 15 minutes. And then others tell me it takes them about 2 hours. So I think it just depends on the amount of detail that you're trying to include in the application. We're always willing to have a chat. So if you want to do, the 15-minute application and then drop me a line at hekla@bigissue.com or bigissueinvest.com. I'd be happy to speak with you about your plans, your growth plans, and how you'd like to be involved with the program. Now, the program is running from most likely now the end of October until January. And then we do a big celebration event and a Dragon's Den style pitch day, which we call the Caterpillar's Cocoon, because we like to make it a little bit softer as we are social investment. And there are always really good outcomes from those pitches. So we'd like to invite you to submit your application by September 17th. If you can't do it by September 17th, please drop me a line to my email that I posted in the chat, and we can create a placeholder for you. So that's kind of the one-stop shop overview of Power Up Scotland, and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for having us, Naomi and Duncan. Yeah, I guess we move over to questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Such useful roundups from everyone. And I've got a couple of links I've just been looking up to put in the chat as well. I found the link to the diagnostic tool that Chris was talking about. So hopefully we've got that too. So if you do have any questions, now's your time to put them all up in the chat. I'll invite our panelists. I haven't changed my view screen, to come back on if there's any questions you want to ask them. And I'll perhaps kick off, because it's always hard to get the first question, so I always like to have one ready. I always think we always talk about who social investment's suitable for and the kind of organisations. So I always like to reverse that. Who is it not suitable for? If that's not a difficult question to ask. And I'll perhaps come to Chris and then maybe Hekla. So what would be the real barriers for an organisation taking on social investment?
Yeah, so it's probably a good way to do it, Naomi, a good way to do it. So any organisation that I suppose isn't generating income. So it would be anybody who is dependent upon grants or a very high percentage of grant funding, or dependent on philanthropy. But even then, there are some charities that it's just not right for, and it's not just about money. It's sometimes just about what they do, what they're prepared to do, who's involved, the level of risk, and ambition. I suppose it's just it's not right for everybody. Nobody is here to suggest that it is right for everybody. What we have seen is that even with some organizations who are heavily grant dependent, that grant income that they raise can sometimes be treated as a sort of income, Naomi. So there have been organizations that on the face of it we think might not suit us, but actually we've got an absolutely great track record of generating grant income. But it's I think there's been an awful lot of talk over the years, and I think an awful lot of the organisations are now quite comfortable with what social investment is. It's there, it's an option. We absolutely understand that free money you don't have to repay is better than money you have to repay with a bit extra. Absolutely get that. But what we always say is that pick up the phone, have a blather with us, try to understand where we're coming from. It's not about, you know, forcing anything down anybody's throats. But yeah, it's there are certain types of organisations which just doesn't suit.
Thank you, Chris. I just think people really benefit sometimes from that honesty in terms of understanding, and like you say, it is a tool that's out there for some organisations, but not all. Hekla, perhaps have any organisations that have come to you that have perhaps been unsuccessful because it's not been suited for? Have there been any trends, maybe?
Yeah, I guess kind of taking off from where Chris left it. There are organizations that come to us that don't understand that social finance or social investment isn't suitable for them. They can't handle the repayments in their cash flow forecast, and it would be really irresponsible of us to lend them money, even though they think that their growth projections will put them in a certain place to be able to repay in the future. We tell them that if you can't handle the repayments now, or with a small flexible repayment period, then it's unreasonable to say that in a year's time you'll be able to handle those repayments, especially coming out of economic times like we've just experienced and are currently experiencing. We don't know what the next year will hold. So for an organization to make a commitment now that they can't come through in a year's time, and then that would put their business in a detriment, we cannot do that. And there have been situations where we haven't been able to invest, and we've pointed organization in the way of a couple of grant bid writers that we know that can help work with those organizations, because we don't have a lot of time, a lot of budgets are strapped, but we can help get you some technical assistance that might be suitable for your business. And that's kind of how we try to do that, and just establish a relationship. Maybe in a year's time, they might be able to handle repayments. And so we like to establish that rapport, try to help them as much as possible, but we may not be the right option at the moment.
Thank you, Chris. I can see you wanted to just come back in.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I get quite. I love these sort of chats. There's some really good points there. We used to talk about it being a journey from grant dependency to generating revenues. So often, when we talk about our pipeline or organisations who made inquiries to us, we will be in conversation with them for years before anything actually happens, because they're going, right, we've got this idea, don't know how we're going to do it, and they pick up the phone. And then what's really important, and Hekla's so highlighted it there, is signposting. So, okay, we can't help you right now, and you wouldn't want our help right now, because it'd be irresponsible of us to give you a standing order at the end of every month that you don't know where the money's going to come from and you're closed, which is not what we want, because that's, you know, the negative impact of that is terrible. It's about signposting to other organisations who might be able to help. That's not often easy, but we will always go out of our way, and I know that Hekla and the team at BII do as well. How else can we help? It's not just about the money, it's about establishing relationships that sometimes run for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years before something actually happens, because plans never ever go to plan. You never go to plan.
Especially at the moment, I think we've all touched on the challenges of the last few years, and I put the link up actually as Hekla was just speaking, just to that investment readiness tool, the diagnostic tool that you spoke about, Chris, because I think regardless actually of whether you're looking for social investment and who with, I tend to point people towards that just as a useful health check for any organisation, you know, whether it is that you're looking at if you are grant dependency. And again, I know when I've spoken on this topic before, I always say we're never saying that the organisations that can take on loans are the really good ones. They're just operating in a different format. This is not a judgment. It's the right thing for some organisations to be grant dependent, and it's the right thing for some organisations to look at loan investment. And I always think that sense of there's no judgment call at all. It's the right thing for your organisation. But I'd really encourage people to use that tool, because if you are in the grant dependency kind of framework, but you're looking for big grants, the health check's just as important as if you're going for loan investment. So there's a couple of questions just come in, and the particular one's just for you, Hekla, so I'm going to bring you on. I think people are perhaps slightly less familiar with Power Up than perhaps the SiS offer as well. So particular program questions for you. How frequently are applications open for Power Up Scotland? Yeah. And what's the likely time commitment for organisations participating in the Power Up programme?
Yep, so this is only the third cohort that we're bringing through Power Up Scotland. We're in talks of what it looks like in the future. Potentially it will be a yearly programme. We had a gap during COVID just because it didn't make sense. The partners wanted to do more in-person style workshops, which is still on the cards, but we don't know how that will work yet. But there will be workshops nonetheless. So I would say get your application in now, because we don't know when we'll be running the next one, and it's looking like we might pivot into a different branded program that will look slightly different than Power Up as well. Do you want me to answer the next question?
Yeah, that'd be great. Just in terms of the likely time commitment for organisations participating in the programme.
Of course. Well, we don't want to take you out of your business. That's not the design of the program, and we don't provide you the capital during the program. So obviously you're bootstrapping yourself. We take anyone from ideation to trading phase in their life cycle. So the only requirement is to meet with your mentor every other week for about 2 hours. You can do more, you can do less. And then also the deliverables of the business plan and the financial forecast. Now that probably will take you about a couple hours every other week. If you are consistent with it, you should be able to finish it. But if you need more support with your organization, there is also that available. And our mentors are really flexible. They're really excited to help. And they also bring people in from within the organization if you need anything else. So it's all up to you. You get out of it what you put into it.
Thank you. I mean, that to me has touched on another really important issue, which I think, Chris, you shared a bit in your presentation, that often for organisations providing social investment, there's a whole wraparound support that goes with this. So obviously you've just talked about the mentoring, but people will really walk with you on this journey. So while they know it can be daunting for loan finance, you're really not on your own. There's lots of access to support. And I can see Chris nodding as I say that. So
yeah, and I think just having a conversation with somebody as well is often underplayed. Having a really good conversation about ideas. We've been through. We've got 200 odd customers just now. However many customers we've helped there. So there's experience, but there's also case studies. We've been there, done that. We've got loads of T-shirts, and not just blank faces. So there's lots of experience we can pass on, but it's also about joining up. Social enterprise. We've got this idea. Oh, have you spoken to such and such? You need to understand the journey they went on, similar place. There is then further sort of professional support that we and BII offer, which is really around attracting. The obvious one that we all talk about, is the most boring, but it's very important, is somebody who can talk to you about your numbers. It's really important. Are you going to be able to open up in a week's time? What's going to happen to the people who knock on your door every day looking for the services you provide? Are we comfortable with that? It's not the be all and end all, but it's very, very important.
Absolutely. And I know when I've run sessions in the past, particularly talking about the numbers, often the transition from using upfront grant programs to suddenly loan investment or grant in arrears is it requires a different level of scrutiny in terms of how you manage cash flow when you pay your bills. And I think, just understanding all of that in terms of a cultural shift around how you look at numbers is quite important for organisations. I'm just going to perhaps ask a couple of questions just on how people keep up to date. So obviously, Hekla, you talked about kind of there might be changes to the programs. If people wanted to keep up to date with big issue investors, that kind of social media, we obviously do our best at Social Enterprise Scotland to keep people informed of changes. But is there a newsletter? Is it social media? How would people find out what's changing?
Yeah, exactly. Social media, if you keep on our Twitter or our Facebook, we'll likely update you with what's current. You can sign up to our newsletter that happens the first week of every month. And you can sign up on our website. Right now, we're actually changing over websites, so it might look a little bit funny depending on what time you log in today. I think they were just going to make it live or migrate it over. So if you look towards the end of the day, it might look a little bit more presentable than right now.
Thank you, Hekla. So yeah, there's one for your 4 o'clock last coffee break of the afternoon kind of slot. And Chris, I'm going to ask the same question to you because you talked about a couple of new funds that are coming online. So if people wanted to really keep up to date with information as that's coming out, other than the SiS newsletter,
yes,
how would they do that?
Yeah. So we do a newsletter. I think it's the last week of every month. Naomi, you probably know better than I do. But I would say absolutely, we jam pack that in with some really, really good stuff. Twitter, LinkedIn. What I would also say is we're trying to be very vocal within the community, not just on social media. So a lot of the events, we're running events all the time, and in effect, what we're trying to do is listen to what organizations are up to, and bend our ear. We'll bend your ear. Pick up the phone, have a blether. I've got this idea. Is it going to work? I'm a great one for trying to make things as simple as possible. It's probably because I can't use anything tech. I'm absolutely flabbergasted I was able to share my screen and flick through the PowerPoint. So just the power of having a simple conversation. I've got this idea. What do you think? What do I need? Who do I need to speak to? Is really, really powerful. But yeah, our newsletter is probably the easiest way. Our website's quite good. I think we probably need to update it as well. I probably shouldn't say that out loud, especially when it's been recorded.
We can do edits, don't worry.
Yeah, please, yeah, you'll be okay.
No, thank you, because I think it is hard when there's so much going on in this sector. And I guess just to draw the session to a close, I think what's really come across today is actually just get in touch. I think you've both done a great job today about showing that you're approachable as organisations. Don't be frightened. You might have a nervousness about going down this route, but both Chris and Hekla and their teams will have had these conversations with people at those very early stages many times. So I think there's no such thing as a daft question. It is, these are organisations set up deliberately to help you on your social impact journey as well. So they know where you're coming from, they know the challenges, and then they understand some of your fears. So don't be frightened to pick up the phone, I think would be, or get in touch. I know, Hekla, you've put your email in as well. So that's all I'd say. I mean, it might not be the right thing for you, but explore it and rule it out as much as rule it in is what I always tell people. So I'd like to just thank both Chris and Hekla for joining us today. Apologies again for our early hiccups. We've never had it happen before. But I think we got round it. So thank you, Chris, for your patience with that. And thank you to everyone for attending. I hope now you can pick up the phone to either of these guys anytime and they're there to help you. So thank you very much. Great to have you along.
Bye.
I'll see you next week. We have a networking webinar. And if you'd like to join us on Tuesday next week, we've got an extra session where we're actually launching the Bisocial Scotland Corporate Challenge programme. So that's Tuesday afternoon next week. You can sign up through our website, and we'd love to have you along at that, really trying to build partnerships between private sector organisations and buyers and social enterprise organisations. So we'd love to have you at that. So that's my plug over for next week, and see you then. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.